If you're over 60 and you start your morning with a cup of coffee, you might be sitting on one of the most powerful longevity rituals of your day and not even realize it. What if I told you that by adding one simple natural ingredient to that cup, you could potentially reactivate dormant stem cells, shift your body into fat-burning mode, and even create a metabolic environment that makes it harder for cancer cells to thrive? It sounds dramatic, but here's where it gets fascinating. As we age, our stem cells become sluggish, our metabolism slows, inflammation quietly rises, and certain cells in the body begin behaving in ways we don't want them to. But researchers from institutions like Harvard and the Mayo Clinic have been studying how specific nutrients can influence these exact pathways: mitochondrial function, autophagy, and cellular repair. And some of the most promising compounds, they pair surprisingly well with your morning coffee. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what to add and why the science behind it is stronger than most people realize. Once you cross the age of 60, your body is not broken, but it is operating under a different biological reality. Stem cells, the repair system you were born with, don't disappear as you age. They simply become less responsive. They divide more slowly. They respond less aggressively to injury. And the signals that once told them to regenerate muscle, support immune function, and repair tissues begin to weaken. At the same time, something else happens quietly in the background. Your metabolism shifts, muscle mass declines, insulin sensitivity drops, inflammation increases, even if you feel healthy. Researchers at places like Harvard Medical School and the Mayo Clinic describe this as a state of low-grade chronic inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging. It's subtle. You won't necessarily feel it day to day, but over time, it creates the internal environment where disease is more likely to take hold. Here's the part most people overlook. Cancer cells thrive in high glucose, high inflammatory environments. They rely heavily on sugar metabolism. Meanwhile, healthy stem cells function best in metabolically flexible, low inflammatory conditions. So the internal environment of your body matters enormously. This might sound complex, but the solution doesn't always require complicated interventions. Small, repeated daily signals shape how your cells behave. Every meal, every metabolic shift, every inflammatory spike. Your cells are constantly listening. And coffee, something millions of seniors already drink, turns out to be more than just a caffeine boost. Coffee itself contains polyphenols and antioxidants that support cellular health. But when paired strategically with certain compounds, it can become a delivery system for nutrients that influence fat metabolism, cellular repair pathways, and even autophagy, your body's internal recycling program. In other words, your morning cup can either be neutral or it can become a powerful metabolic signal that works in your favor. And the first ingredient on our list may surprise you. Before we talk about specific ingredients, we need to understand what's really happening inside your cells after 60, because this isn't about trendy superfoods, it's about energy, the kind your cells use to repair, regenerate, and protect you. Every one of your stem cells relies on tiny structures called mitochondria. Think of them as microscopic power plants. When you were younger, these mitochondria were efficient, responsive, and abundant. They produced clean energy, they helped regulate inflammation, they supported cellular renewal, but as the decades pass, mitochondrial efficiency declines. Research from institutions like Harvard has shown that aging cells often experience mitochondrial dysfunction, meaning they produce less energy and more oxidative stress at the same time. That's a dangerous combination. Less energy for repair, more damage accumulating. Here's where it gets fascinating. Your body has a built-in repair mechanism called autophagy. It's essentially cellular housekeeping. Damaged proteins get recycled, malfunctioning mitochondria get cleared out. New, healthier components take their place. Autophagy is strongly linked to longevity, metabolic health, and even cancer prevention. But autophagy slows with age. Now here's the powerful part. Certain nutrients can stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria, and gently encourage autophagy. They send signals that say, it's time to clean house, it's time to burn fat, it's time to repair. Stem cells respond to these signals. When the metabolic environment shifts toward fat burning, lower insulin levels, and reduced inflammation, stem cells become more active and resilient. They're better able to repair tissue and maintain muscle. Meanwhile, cancer cells, which depend heavily on glucose and inflammatory signals, struggle in that same environment. This is not about curing anything. It's about shifting terrain, changing the metabolic soil in which your cells live, and that shift can begin with what you add to your coffee. Let's start with an ingredient most people already have in their kitchen, but rarely use strategically. This might sound almost too simple. Cinnamon, the same spice sitting quietly in your pantry, but the science behind it is more impressive than most people realize. After 60, one of the biggest silent disruptors of stem cell function is unstable blood sugar. Even if you're not diabetic, your insulin sensitivity naturally declines with age. That means your body has to work harder to process carbohydrates. Blood sugar spikes become more frequent, and every spike sends a powerful signal through your system. Store energy, increase inflammation, and shift metabolism toward glucose dependency. Now remember what we talked about earlier. Cancer cells prefer glucose. Chronic inflammation slows stem cell repair, and high insulin levels suppress fat burning. This is where cinnamon becomes strategic. Multiple studies have shown that cinnamon can improve insulin sensitivity and slow the rate at which glucose enters the bloodstream after a meal. Researchers have found that compounds in cinnamon, particularly cinnamaldehyde, influence glucose transporters and insulin signaling pathways. In plain language, it helps your cells respond to sugar more efficiently. But the real surprise was its impact on inflammation and oxidative stress. Cinnamon contains powerful polyphenols that act as antioxidants, helping reduce the cellular stress that damages mitochondria. When oxidative stress drops, stem cells function more efficiently. They divide more reliably, they survive longer. There's another fascinating layer. Some laboratory studies suggest that cinnamon extracts may interfere with certain cancer cell signaling pathways, particularly those involved in uncontrolled growth and angiogenesis, which is the process tumors use to build new blood vessels. While this is still being studied and doesn't replace medical treatment, it reinforces the idea that metabolic stability matters. When you add cinnamon to coffee, something else happens. Coffee itself improves insulin sensitivity and contains chlorogenic acids that slow glucose absorption. Together, coffee and cinnamon create a more stable metabolic response. Fewer spikes, less inflammation, more steady energy. And here's the key for seniors: stable blood sugar doesn't just protect against diabetes. It creates a low-inflammatory, fat-burning environment where stem cells can do their job more effectively. This isn't about dumping sugar and then sprinkling cinnamon on top. It works best when your coffee is low in added sweeteners. Think of cinnamon as a metabolic amplifier. Small amount, powerful effect, but we're just getting started. The next ingredient targets inflammation even more directly, and its effects on cellular signaling have been studied for decades. If cinnamon stabilizes blood sugar, turmeric goes after something even more fundamental: chronic inflammation. After 60, inflammation isn't always loud. It's not necessarily swelling or pain. It's often quiet, systemic, and persistent. Researchers sometimes call it inflammaging. And this low-grade inflammation interferes directly with stem cell regeneration. It disrupts mitochondrial efficiency. It alters cellular communication. Over time, it creates an environment where abnormal cells are more likely to survive. The active compound in turmeric, curcumin, has been studied extensively for its effects on inflammatory pathways. It interacts with molecular signals like NF-κB, one of the major switches that turns inflammation on inside the body. When that switch stays chronically activated, it promotes cellular stress and accelerates aging processes. Curcumin appears to gently downregulate that signal. In plain language, it helps turn down the background noise of inflammation. Now here's where it gets fascinating for seniors. Stem cells are highly sensitive to their environment. When inflammation is high, they remain in a defensive, low-function state. But when inflammatory signals decrease, stem cells are more likely to activate, repair, and replicate appropriately. There's also intriguing research suggesting that curcumin may influence apoptosis, the programmed death of damaged or abnormal cells. Healthy cells rely on proper apoptosis to eliminate potential threats. Cancer cells, on the other hand, often disable this self-destruct mechanism. Laboratory studies have shown that curcumin can help restore some of that balance in certain cellular models. Again, this is not a treatment, but it reinforces the idea that reducing chronic inflammation shifts the terrain in your favor. When added to coffee, turmeric does something practical as well. Coffee increases circulation and may enhance the absorption of certain polyphenols. And when turmeric is combined with a small amount of healthy fat, which we'll talk about shortly, curcumin becomes significantly more bioavailable. One small caution: turmeric is powerful, but it's best absorbed with a pinch of black pepper, which contains piperine. Piperine can increase curcumin absorption dramatically, so if you're adding turmeric to your coffee, think in terms of a small intentional blend, not just a sprinkle. For seniors looking to protect their cells, calm inflammation, and create a regenerative internal environment, turmeric acts like a master dial, lowering the background stress that ages tissues prematurely. But lowering inflammation is only part of the equation. The next ingredient improves something just as critical for stem cell vitality: blood flow and mitochondrial fuel delivery. Now let's talk about circulation, because even the healthiest stem cells can't function properly if they aren't being nourished. One of the quiet changes that happens with age is reduced endothelial function. That's the health of the thin lining inside your blood vessels. When this lining becomes stiff or less responsive, blood flow decreases, oxygen delivery drops, nutrients don't reach tissues as efficiently, and stem cells, which rely on strong circulation to travel where they're needed, become less effective. This is where raw cacao becomes incredibly interesting. Raw cacao, not sugary milk chocolate, but pure, minimally processed cacao powder, is rich in flavonoids. These compounds have been studied for their ability to increase nitric oxide production in the body. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that relaxes blood vessels and improves circulation. Better circulation means better oxygen delivery. Better oxygen means healthier mitochondria. And remember, mitochondria are the engines of your cells. Research has shown that cacao flavonoids can improve endothelial function even in older adults. In some studies, vascular flexibility improved within weeks. That matters because flexible, responsive blood vessels reduce strain on the heart and improve nutrient delivery to tissues throughout the body. But here's the part most people overlook. Stem cells require a strong vascular network to migrate to areas of injury or repair. They follow chemical signals through the bloodstream. If circulation is sluggish, their response is slower. By improving blood flow, you're not just supporting heart health. You're enhancing your body's natural repair logistics system. There's another layer. Cacao flavonoids also reduce oxidative stress. Less oxidative stress means less mitochondrial damage, and healthier mitochondria translate into stronger cellular energy production. Some emerging research even explores how cacao compounds may influence metabolic pathways involved in tumor cell growth, though this field is still evolving. What we know clearly is that improved vascular health and reduced oxidative stress create an environment that favors normal cellular regulation over chaotic growth. When added to coffee, cacao complements coffee's natural polyphenols. The taste becomes richer, the antioxidant profile increases, and instead of a jittery spike, many people experience smoother, more sustained energy. For seniors, that matters. Stable energy, better circulation, improved cellular fuel delivery. But there's one ingredient that takes metabolic flexibility to another level entirely, and it shifts your body into a fat-burning mode that fundamentally changes how your cells produce energy. Now we move into something more metabolic. And this is where the shift becomes powerful. As we age, many of us become increasingly dependent on glucose for fuel. We eat carbohydrates, blood sugar rises, insulin follows, and our cells burn sugar. But over time, this constant glucose reliance can reduce metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to switch between burning sugar and burning fat. And here's where it gets critical. Cancer cells are heavily dependent on glucose. They ferment sugar rapidly in a process known as the Warburg effect. Healthy cells, especially stem cells, are far more adaptable. They can use fats, ketones, or glucose depending on availability, but they perform exceptionally well in low insulin fat-burning environments. This is where MCT oil enters the picture. MCT stands for medium-chain triglycerides. Unlike most dietary fats, MCTs are absorbed quickly and transported directly to the liver, where they are converted into ketones. Ketones are a clean-burning fuel source for your brain and body. They don't spike insulin. They don't create the same inflammatory response as repeated glucose surges. When you add MCT oil to coffee, something remarkable happens. You can gently nudge your body into mild ketosis, even without a strict ketogenic diet. That means your cells begin using fat-derived fuel instead of relying solely on sugar. Here's why that matters for seniors. Ketones have been shown in research to support mitochondrial efficiency. They produce fewer reactive oxygen species compared to glucose metabolism. In plain terms, they generate energy with less cellular exhaust. That reduces oxidative stress and supports long-term cellular resilience. There's also evidence that ketone metabolism may influence stem cell signaling and autophagy pathways. Remember autophagy, your body's internal recycling system? Ketosis appears to enhance it, and enhanced autophagy is strongly associated with longevity research, including studies on fasting and caloric restriction. Now let's talk about fat burning. When insulin levels are lower and ketones are present, your body becomes more willing to tap into stored fat. For many seniors, especially those struggling with stubborn abdominal weight, this shift can be transformative. Less belly fat means less inflammatory signaling, and lower inflammation means a more supportive environment for stem cell activation. Some researchers are even exploring how metabolic therapies that reduce glucose availability may make it harder for certain cancer cells to thrive. While this is an active area of research and not a replacement for medical care, the underlying principle is clear. Metabolic flexibility is protective. When blended into coffee, MCT oil also slows caffeine absorption slightly, reducing jitters and providing sustained energy. Many seniors report improved mental clarity, likely because the brain readily uses ketones as fuel. So now you've stabilized blood sugar, reduced inflammation, improved circulation, enhanced mitochondrial fuel delivery, and shifted into fat-burning mode. But there's one final ingredient, when it may be the most powerful of them all, because it directly supports the antioxidant system that protects stem cells at their core. Now we arrive at the most underestimated and arguably most powerful addition you can make to your coffee after 60, glycine. You may know it indirectly through collagen peptides, which are rich in glycine. But glycine itself is an amino acid that plays a central role in one of the most important protective systems in your body, glutathione production. Glutathione is often called the master antioxidant. It neutralizes oxidative stress. It protects mitochondria. It supports detoxification pathways in the liver. And perhaps most importantly for seniors, it preserves stem cell integrity. Here's what many people don't realize. As you age, glutathione levels decline. Studies have shown that lower glutathione is associated with increased oxidative damage, impaired mitochondrial function, and reduced regenerative capacity. In simple terms, your cells lose some of their protective shield. Glycine is one of the 3 amino acids required to produce glutathione, and in older adults, glycine levels are often suboptimal. That means even if your body wants to produce more glutathione, it may not have the raw materials to do so efficiently. When you add collagen peptides or pure glycine powder to coffee, you're delivering a building block your body can use immediately. But it doesn't stop there. Glycine also appears to influence inflammation regulation and cellular signaling pathways tied to longevity. Some research suggests glycine supports mitochondrial biogenesis and improves metabolic efficiency. It may even enhance sleep quality when taken regularly, and sleep itself is one of the strongest activators of stem cell repair. Now, here's where it becomes especially interesting in the context of cancer metabolism. Healthy cells rely on balanced oxidative stress and proper apoptosis, the ability to remove damaged cells. Glutathione helps maintain that balance, while cancer cells also manipulate antioxidant systems for survival. Maintaining optimal glutathione in healthy tissue helps preserve normal cellular regulation and resilience. There's also emerging research into how glycine restriction affects tumor growth in certain models, highlighting just how metabolically active this amino acid is. The point isn't to eliminate glycine, it's to maintain proper metabolic balance so healthy cells remain strong and adaptable. When combined with coffee, collagen peptides dissolve easily and create a creamy texture without sugar. You're not spiking insulin, you're not feeding inflammatory pathways, you're simply giving your body raw materials for repair. For seniors concerned about muscle loss, there's another advantage. Collagen supports connective tissue health, joint integrity, and may contribute to muscle maintenance when paired with adequate protein intake and resistance exercise. So now look at what you've built in one simple morning ritual. You've stabilized blood sugar with cinnamon, you've calmed inflammation with turmeric, you've improved circulation with cacao, you've shifted into fat-burning mode with MCT oil, and you've fortified your antioxidant defense system with glycine. This is no longer just coffee, it's a metabolic signal, and that signal tells your body, repair, regenerate, protect. If you've ever felt like aging is something that just happens to you, something out of your control, I want you to reconsider that idea, because biology responds to signals. Every day, your cells are listening. They respond to blood sugar levels, to inflammation, to the type of fuel you provide, to whether oxidative stress is overwhelming them or whether antioxidants are standing guard. And while no single food is a miracle, consistent daily signals compound over time. What we've talked about today isn't about hype, it's about terrain. It's about creating an internal environment where healthy stem cells are supported, where mitochondrial energy production improves, where fat becomes a cleaner fuel source, and where inflammatory noise is dialed down. After 60, regeneration doesn't stop. It simply requires better conditions. Your morning coffee is already a ritual. By strategically enhancing it, you transform it from a passive habit into an active longevity tool, a signal that says stabilize, repair, protect. Small decisions, repeated daily, often shape health more than dramatic interventions. And this one takes less than 2 minutes. Your future cells will thank you for it. Add these 5 ingredients to your morning coffee for 30 days, and let your body show you what it's still capable of.